What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our Week 8 Team Builder, taking on my good pal Jed and the Adelaide Overheat. His team consists of Ash Greninja, that's not allowed to use items, Raikou, Aerodactyl, Whimsicott, Yanmega, Steelix, Mega Gallade, Naganadel that's not allowed to use Z Crystal or run Nasty Plot, Alolan Marowak, Licky Licky, and Blastoise. Priority users on his side, the Ash Greninja could use Water Shuriken, Mega Gallade could use Shadow Sneak, and Blastoise can use Aqua Jet. Hazard setting, he's got the Greninja with spikes. It's not allowed to have T-spikes because that's an egg move, and Ash Greninja doesn't have access to egg moves. So it's only spikes, no T-spikes there. Steelix with Stealth Rocks or Marowak with Stealth Rocks, as well as Aerodactyl with Stealth Rocks, which I just left off my list for some reason, but I know that it gets rocks, so there we go. Let me just add that there. And then removal options, he's got the Aerodactyl with Defog, Whimsicott with Defog, Yanmega with Defog, and Blastoise with Rapid Spin. His team is pretty weak to rocks, so having a rock setter in general is going to be great this match. 4x weaknesses is the Whimsicott to Poison and the Yanmega to Rock. I believe I have both of those covered. I might not actually have rock coverage for Yanmega, but that's fine. Yanmega is relatively frail on the special side, and it's a much better physically defensive Pokemon. It's actually a really good fighting resist, so something to keep in mind is that it would be a very good Heracross check if he thinks that he's really weak to Heracross. Now, before I get into things here, actually I'll talk about his team a little bit more. I'm expecting literally anything to come. I actually think all 11 of these have a really solid matchup against me. Not a big fan of this matchup. I was theory modding like a physical Naganadel with Jed and Call last night, because he was like, oh, what should I bring that's good against you? And I'm like, oh yeah, Fellstinger. Well, he said Fellstinger Naganadel. I highly doubt that's coming, but I actually wouldn't put it past him for him to bring it. There are a couple things I think actually match up poorly. One of those is the Ash Greninja. I would definitely not be surprised to not see it come. It's one of the only things that's stopping Mega Alakazam from being a gigantic problem for him, though, and it's one of his better ways to revenge kill Darmanitan. I'm a little bit iffy on the Licky Licky. It could come and it could be annoying, but it also might not come and it might not be annoying. I did make some drops, and I'll talk about those in a second here. Once I finally get over to that. Steelix is another mon that I'm a little bit iffy on. My breakers do have quite an easy time with Steelix, but it could definitely wall some of my threats. Naganadel I think is coming 100% of the time. It absolutely destroys me if he's not choice locked, and I built a lure set just for the Naganadel so that I could be able to deal with that. Marowak is also another Pokemon that just absolutely tears me apart. It gets revenge killed quite easily though, and he doesn't have any Trick Room setters, so I'm not, well actually, sorry, Mega Gallade can set Trick Room, so he might bring that for that. Mega Gallade is a Pokemon that I'm not necessarily that scared of because it's very easily revenge killed by most of my team. I'm not bringing most of those, so we'll sort of see if it comes or not. And that's kind of my basic thoughts. Everything else is mainly utility besides maybe Raikou, which also probably has to come to be able to deal with Celesteela. Either the Raikou and the Alolan Marowak, or just one of them, not sure. But let's talk about my drops. So I mentioned in week 7 that I made some drops, and it's like, oh, wow, that's really weird because you're 7-0. Well, I made them when I was 6-0, first of all. But got a little bit more utility here. I wasn't really bringing Golurk as much as I wanted. I actually kept Wigglytuff, mainly for my week 12 match, but also because it still gives me the threat of having a Cleric and having a Fairy type. Not that a Fairy type matters in this game at all because his Dragon type is part Poison anyways. But yeah, so Wigglytuff's on the team still. I dropped Drapion for Spiritomb and Golurk for Ursaring, and both of them are coming this week. Now, I didn't do that like with the sense, oh, I'm going to bring both of these against Jed, but in the sense that I wasn't really utilizing Toxic Spikes on Drapion all that much, even though it's a pretty valid strat with something like Kyurem-Black, Mega Alakazam. I was just like, I couldn't find opportunities for it. Their grounded poisons always looked like they could come, or like maybe had a matchup despite me having Mega Alakazam on the team, so I wasn't really utilizing it to the best of the ability, and I actually think Spiritomb is just a better Dark type defensively. It definitely is a better Dark type defensively, just not offensively. Kind of maneuvers my speed tiers a little bit. I had 3 Mons at base 95, so like sort of cut back on that now to a slower base with the Spiritomb, and Ursaring actually is the same speed as Golurk, so that doesn't really matter at all. But maybe a little bit more of a threat down there in tier 5 with the Ursaring than a Golurk would be. I'm a huge fan of Golurk. I've used it very well in the past, but it doesn't seem to be fitting this team because I'd rather have things like Darmanitan and Kyurem-Black as physical attackers most of the time. I think this team could still use more physical offense, but Piloswine's been carrying the burden of rocks every week, and so getting rid of a rocker is definitely not going to help in that regard. It means Piloswine's going to have to come more often, but teams have seemed to struggle with Piloswine mainly this season, so it seems valid there. So first up on my side is actually the Spiritomb. It's a very, very good check to the Mega Gallade this game. Mega Gallade can't really do much to Spiritomb. Unless it boosts. Infiltrator is super helpful here because I know how much Jed likes running sub, so I don't really care about that with Infiltrator, obviously. And actually, I believe, I haven't tested this, but Pain Split normally doesn't work through sub. I believe with Infiltrator, Pain Split works through sub, so there's a lot of room for me to play around with that with the Spiritomb, but he, in his match against Hamu, every single Pokemon on his team had sub, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him try sub shenanigans against me as well. So Infiltrator will help me bypass that. Again, it's a Gallade check. It's in theory like a physical Ash Greninja check, but he's brought Thief Ash Greninja so often that I have a specific counter to his Thief Ash Greninja in the back. Alolan Marowak can two-shot me. Hopefully it doesn't. This also functions as a nice Aerodactyl check where the Rotom may not. I am running Will-O-Wisp, so burning something is going to be super useful. Except if the Licky Licky comes, that would really suck. I don't really have many things I can do the Licky Licky. I considered a Calm Mindset on Spiritomb this week, but which actually probably would have been more effective than what I'm bringing, but I'm just trying to keep his things in check so that I can lead up to an Ursaring endgame. In theory, that's the idea, at least, is that Ursaring is going to be my end game in this one here. So yeah, Foul Play just to deal a lot of damage back to things that are physical attackers for the main part. Sucker Punch is a really good stab priority option for a base 35 Pokemon. It actually lets me revenge kill quite a few things. Like the lack of priority on this team really buffs Sucker Punch in my opinion. It's going to do quite a lot of damage to that Marowak if it wants to attack me, and obviously I can Will-O-Wisp, Gallade, Aerodactyl, things of that nature, of course. So, yeah, I'm also immune to Whimsicott's Prankster abilities, but it's probably just going to Moonblast me anyways. Drapion, I think, would have been a little bit more ideal to take on the Whimsicott, because then I threaten it out with a Poison move, but I do have other things like the Celesteela to deal with that. I've got Heavy Slam, Toxic, Earthquake, and Leech Seed, which is a really strange set of moves here, I think. Leech Seed with no Protect, wow, that's crazy. Ian bringing a defensive Celesteela once again? Crazy! Celesteela's got 11 kills, folks, or 10 kills, folks. It's the top of the team in kills, and I brought it defensively almost all the time. It just seems like people throw away their Celesteela checks to deal with other Mons on my team, and it ends up with me being able to succeed with Celesteela. I think Piloswine and Rotom-Wash have been like the main beneficiaries of that, being able to beat down fire types and electric types. And I actually think I really built this team well around Celesteela for once, so that's a huge pog. But yeah, Heavy Slam deals a ton of damage to a lot of Mons on this team, and anything that doesn't take a ton of damage from Heavy Slam takes a ton of damage from Earthquake. So, yeah, basically Heavy Slam plus Earthquake is near perfect coverage this game. I've got Toxic on there as well for Mons like Blastoise and Licky Licky. I'm not sure if Jed knows this, but Rapid Spin does spin away Leech Seed, so I'm not necessarily going to stay in on Blastoise forever, especially because I'm a physical attacker and he could burn me. But getting Leech Seed off against something like Licky Licky, I can stay in and realistically 1v1 the Licky Licky. It kind of sucks I don't have Protect for like a Fire Blast Licky Licky. I'm sure he's going to have Fire or Electric coverage on his Licky Licky for me. Otherwise, he's just going to get hard walled, and I'll be able to wear that thing down, run it out of Heal Bells, whatever I need to do, get a ton of HP back against it. I'm really scared about the Raikou. I should be able to take a T-Bolt from full unless it's Specs because of how especially defensive I am, but I'm mainly here as a Naganadel check in theory. I don't really switch into Naganadel basically ever, but I can in theory like pivot into this if he doesn't just predict that and go for a fire move. Yeah, like Fire Blast or Flamethrower Naganadel is really going to hurt, and I'm definitely not super confident about this one. I know Joe was having fun in call last night. He was laughing because I was making excuses about this game, but I definitely am not 100% on this one at all. Historically I've beaten Jed based on matchup pretty much most of the time. This is one of them where I think he's got a solid one. I'm not sure how he feels about the mons that I'm not bringing, though. I'm definitely not bringing a lot of threats, and I'm bringing more low-tier mons to sort of catch him off guard a little bit. We'll see if that works in my favor or not. Pilliswine is specially defensive, designed to take on the Raikou. In theory, I can take on the Alolan Marowak. That's why I'm running a little bit of speed on the Pilliswine, is that I can outspeed the Alolan Marowak and get good Earthquake chip onto it. Rocks is really important. Toxic, really important for a lot of this team, actually. Getting a Toxic off against most things is going to be super duper helpful. There's like a secondary check to Naganadel as well. I can always revenge kill it with Earthquake. I'm not invested, but I should be able to do enough with that. Earthquake plus Ice Shard. I think Ice Shard is going to be really useful in revenge killing mons like Whimsicott, Naganadel, Aerodactyl, Yanmega. I think Ice Shard is just a really good revenge killing tool, and I didn't really need Icicle Crash this game. It wasn't helping me like pretty much ever, so getting up rocks and then just being able to get some hits off with Pilliswine I think will be really helpful. I actually think Pilliswine is one of like the glue Pokemon on this team for sure, and it's definitely going to give Jed a pretty hard time unless he just goes like hard Blastoise or Greninja, and those are relatively easy Toxics. I think the Blastoise might actually end up coming as his Rapid Spinner this week instead of running Defog. Now that I'm speaking through it in words. Just fully Spit F with a tiny bit of speed there for the Marowak, like I mentioned before. Rotom-Wash. All right, this is my Ash Greninja check. I think he's going to be physical Ash Greninja. It makes the most sense to me for him to be physical. This is my primary Marowak answer. He cannot two-shot me with Shadow Bone in theory, and Z Hydro Pump will always kill it. So I am Z because I think he's going to be Thief Greninja. I don't want him taking my leftovers. I actually need all the items on absolutely everything, so I'm running the Waturium Z. Now, the benefit to this is that I don't get to miss Hydro Pump, but it's not really doing all that much more for me besides that. You know, I would rather have the recovery, which is why I have Pain Split. In theory, I can Pain Split on something like Licky Licky, or a lot of his mons are actually high base HP compared to the Rotom, so I'll be able to take a lot of stuff away from there. But yeah, mons like Steelix, Licky Licky, Blastoise, Raikou, Aerodactyl, things of that nature. Volt Switch just pivot out on things. I mean, I threaten his ground type, and I don't think Marowak is going to be Lightning Rod. Even if it is Lightning Rod, it really doesn't matter because I just kill it if it switches into Volt Switch. So just pivoting around with that. And then I've got Hidden Power Poison for the Whimsicott. I was considering Spite as the last move instead of Hidden Power Poison, just to be a little bit cheeky, maybe get rid of some Wishes or some Heal Bells on the Licky Licky, if that's going to be his pivot into me. Not really sure what else I would do there. Could spite away like Draco Meteors or something. Excuse me. It's right after work. Very physically defensive Rotom. That's pretty much all there is to it. Kyurem-Black is my Naganadel over this week. With the Habanberry, I will live modest Draco Meteors at +1. I can live a modest Draco Meteor at +1 with the Habanberry and all of my bulk. And if he's speed creeping superior, like I think he will be, I will kill him 100% of the time with Ice Beam. If he's that bulk investment, I really hope I'm right on that one. I ran the calcs. It should be correct. I've got Earth Power there as well for the Raikou. This is a pretty good Raikou answer. Unless he's Rash with Aura Sphere. And if he's Rash with Aura Sphere, I don't outspeed it necessarily. He can still outspeed me, but I think that he would probably want to outspeed Superior in most cases and just like not run Aura Sphere. I don't think it's all that necessary for him except for hitting the Kyurem-Black. So we'll sort of see about that. I am running max speed Timid. I will speed tie Yanmega, just fully specially defensive with Roost and Toxic. So late game, even without my Habanberry, if the Naganadel's dealt with, I can deal with basically everything that isn't named Aerodactyl or Gallade. The rest of the team actually probably just loses to Kyurem-Black at that point, so it's got a couple functions. I'm not very offensive, very bulky and fast, but that's just the point of Kyurem-Black, is that it's a Naganadel lure. If it doesn't work this time, I'm just not going to choose Jed in playoffs, assuming I'm in a spot where I get to choose. Last but not least is Ursaring, Mike's dad, coming in here with the Flame Orb and Guts. I actually want to look at this for a second. Do you get Quick Attack? It does not get Quick Attack. Are you sure about that? Does it not get Quick Attack? Like, really? Ah, darn. I thought that it might have gotten quick attack like Zangoose, but maybe it's just a little bit worse than Zangoose then, unfortunately. But yeah, really high base attack on the Ursaring. It doesn't really live hits that well, but I get a lot of bulk this game. I'm opting into Jolly over Adamant. I'm just talking about the EVs here for a sec here. I could be Adamant against this team. I'm actually just outspeeding no speed Blastoise. And I could be Adamant, but it would require me to have like little to no bulk. And so I'd rather be Jolly, trade a tiny bit of damage for a lot more bulk. So that's the idea behind Ursaring. Or at least the speed on it. Facade, like stab Facade after the Flame Orb is just going to be nuts. It does a ton of damage. The only thing that can even switch into it is Marowak and Steelix. Aerodactyl does get 2-shot by it, depending on the bulk investment there. So, yeah, Facade, it'll pick a kill off against most things here. Gallade obviously threatens me out, but I do have the Spiritomb for that. So I've got backup plans for a lot of things that would threaten Ursaring in theory, which is basically just a Gallade. I take neutral damage from almost everything else. Earthquake is there for the Marowak and the Steelix, but close combat's going to do more to the Steelix. And I think he's more than likely going to be Shuka rather than Chople if he brings the Steelix. Actually, he could be Chople as a Mega Zam answer. That could be something that he's going to go with there. But if Steelix doesn't even come, then I don't have to really worry about clicking close combat. It's just maybe nice as a licky check. I've got Swords Dance just in case I can. I didn't really need another move. Unless I'd quick attack, which I was just going to edit in right now, late into the Teambuilder recording process. But it doesn't get quick attack. So that's the idea behind Ursaring. I think it's got a really good matchup here. Jay suggested it, and he said it had a really good matchup, and I trust him, so there you go. I'm not bringing Superior. I think Naganadel is the main reason. Like, Naganadel, Whimsicott, and Yanmega are the main reasons I'm not bringing Serp. I've had this strat of just like clicking Glare against teams over and over and over again this season, and Jed's actually got a really fast team, and I would love to have Glare support for this team, but I get threatened by his fast Pokemon, and that's an issue. Most of the time I can get away with clicking Glare against teams that don't threaten Superior, but maybe threaten something else like Celesteela. In this case, it's not going to work out that way for me. I can't really abuse that. And so I'm not going to go for it. And he's got a lot of grass resists on this team, so I'm not going to bother bringing Superior as like a grass check. He has tons and tons of ways to beat grass types. So we're avoiding Superior at all costs. Darmanitan actually doesn't look that bad to me. It's pretty much only the Blastoise that's going to stand in the way of Darmanitan just wrecking house against this team. But it's not coming. I'm not bringing Darm. The defensive utility of this game is going to be so much better for me, I think, in setting up a Kyurem-Black or Ursaring late game. I just feel like that's going to be the way to go. And I could just be completely wrong and blinded on this, but I guess we'll find out in the battle. Heracross is a great way to break through Licky. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that. I've got Toxic on a lot of Pokemon. I can pivot out on it with Rotom very easily. Where the problem comes in is if he's a Toxic Licky with fire coverage. That's when it's going to get really sketchy, and I would absolutely hate that. If he was like Mono Fire Blast, Toxic Wish, Heal Bell, something like that, Toxic Wish Protect, whatever, that would make my life pretty much a living hell, because if I get Toxic on my Pokemon, I'm going to be in a really bad spot, especially if he outspeeds the Ursaring. I hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't. But if he gets a Toxic off before I can proc my Flame Orb, then that is going to suck. So that's yeah, Heracross isn't coming, but it's a great way to break the the Licky. Heracross in general probably looks okay as a Scarfer here, but I think it opens up the door to Alolan Marowak too much, and I'm already scared shitless of that thing. I don't need to open up a door anymore. Wigglytuff is such a meme on this team, honestly. Naganadel threatens it. That's the main reason Wigglytuff isn't coming. It actually can wall Ashgren in theory, especially if I ran like Z Wigglytuff. I could just wall the Ashgren completely, but I'm not scared of Ashgren. I'm really not scared of Ashgren, so it doesn't hold a purpose here. Mega Alakazam was on the team at one point, came off the team at another point. A Calm Mind Mega Alakazam probably isn't horrible. Still probably needs 3 moves at the very least. I wanted to trace like Beast Boost and just like go ham with Psychic. There's not a lot stopping that in reality. Mega Alakazam with like with tracing Beast Boost could be absolutely deadly. I didn't have the room. I wanted the defensive utility. I wanted the Naganadel lure so that I could bait that thing. It's his kill leader. He goes hard with it. And I think he's going to go hard with it again. So that's the idea behind the team. I'm sort of I'm building around his playstyle and not his team necessarily, but I think I have most things covered. In theory, on Mega should still be checked by Celesteela, like pretty much all the time. Whimsicott, same thing. I've got a Raikou check in the Piloswine, an Aerodactyl check, and an Alolan Marowak check in the Rotom, a Mega Gallade check, and an Alolan Marowak check in the Spiritomb, and ways to beat down his walls with Ursaring and Kyurem-Black. So I think in theory I should have covered everything, but it may not work out that way. Yeah, so that's going to be it for me. This is a really long team builder. I'm very sorry about that. But we are taking on Jed and the Adelaide Overheat in Week 8 of the NCL, and I will catch you guys for the match.